Something told me just to go look at the video again of Covington Catholic High School in D.C. With the supposed March for Life and the Hebrew Israelites and the quote-unquote Native Americans that were there. And then from there, I decided to go to look into some matters with the school, just out of curiosity. And I went to their website and I came across a report that they had done. Now, they hired an investigation firm about 4 days after the incident. So something tells me that when this made national news, maybe even international news, a lot of parents were very concerned about the bad publicity and just the attention and the spotlight that happened in school. I know there were reports of death threats, bomb threats, shooting threats, and they closed down the school for the next day, I believe, for safety precautions. So I guess the school had to scramble, and they conducted an investigation, and they hired a firm. Now, just to put out some other information, the Covington School, which is a part of the Covington Diocese in the state of Kentucky and northern Kentucky, back in 2005, with the whole Catholic priest scandals with sexual misconduct, when the Catholic Church was sealing the records on all the settlements that had happened, going back into the past, the Covington Diocese. Now, this isn't necessarily specifically the school. The school is a part of the diocese, so there's no way of maybe pinpointing what was taking place with this particular school. Other schools, there's a university that's affiliated with the diocese, as well as the churches. But back in 2005, it was announced that with the sealed records that had been hidden, that more than 100 victims of sexual abuse were paid approximately $120 million. I mean, can you believe that? And back in 2009, it was reported, I believe that since then, that 243 victims of sexual abuse received approximately $254,000 in payouts, totaling approximately $79 million. And 35 of the perpetrators were priests, assuming there were more perps involved in the matter, but at least 35 of them were priests. So it kind of makes you wonder. At one point in time, I believe his name is Chief Ephraim, when it was a Catholic priest there in the video. I'm not sure if he was with the school or not, if he was one of the chaperones, but he pointed him out and he said, "How many kids have you raped or assaulted?" And the priest just walked off. So at the time, I felt like he shouldn't have done that. But now when I found out this information about the settlements involving the diocese, once again, we don't know if it's specifically this school. Maybe he ran away because of a guilty conscience. Who knows? I mean, so it's amazing, these payouts with these settlements. So anyway, I was looking at the report that they conducted, doing a lot of interviews. They looked at a lot of videos on social media. They were trying to get some of the cameras from the parks services with the federal government, but they weren't able to get any. And Bishop Foy, I guess he's the presiding bishop of the diocese or the school. And if you after watching this video, if you want to look at the report, just Google Covington Catholic High School, go to their website. They've taken away a lot of features on their website, but you can look at this report. This report is open to the public. Now, I have to say, I watched the 2-hour video that was loaded by the Israelites, as well as some other videos over the course of time. And I just have to say that what they did in this report and a number of hours and the amount of money that they said they put into this report, there's some inconsistencies that are going on. And this is a report from licensed investigators. Okay. Now, there was supposed to be about 16 adult chaperones and 9 faculty chaperones, and 4 were parents. Where were these chaperones? Okay. If you had at least 16 chaperones, granted, there may have been hundreds of kids, 100 or 200, but there was just no control whatsoever. I mean, 50 hours of internet research that says that they conducted hundreds of total hours with all the interviews. And then you get this BS report. I want to know how much money they paid to this investigating firm. You could have just given me the money. I could have told you what happened. But one of the things in the report, they said that none of the kids ever started chanting, "Build the wall." That's not true. Now, I will agree. It never got into a big roar, say like at a Trump rally or something, where they would just build that wall, build that wall. But there were one of the, you know how when someone tries to start a cheer or a chant, but it just doesn't catch on, you know, like a person at a game trying to do a wave, you know, and then they're the only ones who stand up and no one else stands up. That's what it was like. It was like a couple of the kids, maybe 1 or 2, were trying to get something started, but the rest of the kids were like, nah, we're not going to do that. You know, so I guess they were at least smart enough not to join in on that, even though they were doing their school cheers. So you can hear distinctively. And then when the Israelites responded, when a couple of the kids were trying to get that "build that wall" chant started up, and that's who was like, build a wall for here. It's like, forget about this. You know, you need to build a wall around Europe. That's when he said, when have you ever seen Hispanics, Afro people, indigenous people? When have you ever seen us go shoot up a school? And then he said, you should build a wall around Europe, not build a wall on the southern border. So that is what got that response. So right here in this report, they're lying. OK, you're saying more than 50 hours of internet research. I mean, that's one big error right here. Either they missed it or they're lying. And you know what the Bible says about a false tongue, those that bear false witness and those that are lying. So you Catholics, you better work on your facts, because it's not looking so good. OK, then they said that the children or the students weren't doing anything to provoke Sandman or Mr. Phillips, the Indian guy. That's not true. Then it was talking about how the chaperones were talking, it was talking about how the chaperones said it would be okay for them to do their school cheers. Now, like I said in a previous video, the original video I did on this, once again, these so-called adults had no control whatsoever. Why would you even do that? Why would you think that doing your school cheers, thinking that you were going to drown out the noise of the Israelites, that's what they claimed, or drown out the noise of the Indians? Why would you think that that was the right way to go? You know, especially when you're talking about a bunch of minors. OK, as I said in my previous podcast, the smarter thing would have been just to separate and de-escalate. You know, they didn't do that until the buses came in the end. So, I mean, just a bad move. And these so-called adults, these chaperones, parents, faculty who work at the school, just a very poor job. No control whatsoever. Very poor job. OK. In the report, they almost made it seem like that the Israelites basically instigated everything. And then it was talking about how they were saying how the students were confused when Mr. Phillips was doing his chant. They were saying, oh, well, the children were joining in. They were clapping. They were joining in. They were participating. No, they were making a mockery. That's what they were doing. They were mocking this elder, you know, who's a Vietnam War veteran. I mean, I'm not praising him for fighting America's wars and doing America's dirty work, but they were not joining in and sharing culture. This was not a cultural exchange. these little punks, that's right, I said it, these little punks were making a mockery. That's what they were doing. Just like they were mocking the Israelite brothers, they were mocking Mr. Phillips. Okay, so all that, well, they were confused and they didn't really understand, so they joined in, and some of them started doing the tomahawk chops. I don't want to hear it. And look, I get it. You know, I've done dumb things as a teenager. I've done dumb things as a high school kid, but you own it, okay? And it's one thing when the kids mess up and do stupid stuff, but when the adults, so-called adults, the so-called chaperones, the faculty, the staff, the so-called professionals, when they don't have any control of the situation, it's absolutely terrible. Okay, and this is supposed to be a Christian institution. Okay, now, you know, these evangelicals, you know, so yeah, I mean, it's just all the way around. This doesn't look good. The one part where it was one chaperone, I give kudos to him. Near the end of the video, he said that if any of the students were engaging with the Israelites, or he told them don't come any closer, if any of them did anything, they would be suspended or expelled or detention. He threatened them with that. That was true. And that one chaperone, at least near the end, did one good thing. Now, they talked about also how, well, they said, well, a few of the kids, if any, were wearing MAGA hats when they left from the school. It's like, really? A few, if any? It was about like a sea of MAGA hats. Maybe a majority of the kids didn't have MAGA hats, but there was enough. You know, then they try to throw in here in the report, well, you know, in previous years, some of the kids had Hope hats when President Obama was in office. It's like, really? Okay, so we're going to try to do this whole equivalency thing. You know, so this whole so-called report that they receive was just a flim-flam. You know, then there's another situation. I think they were talking about homosexuality. And now, granted, this is an all-boys school. So one of the, you can hear, because he was standing in the front, you can hear one of the teenage boys talked about, well, it's not rape if you like it or something like that. Something to that effect. That's what he said. I didn't say it. That's what he said. Okay. And the Israelites fired back at him, you know, for basically condoning homosexuality. In the report, they tried to say, well, we don't know if that was one of our students or not. Maybe that was a young person from a different school or a different group. Really? Okay. You know, and by the way, you know, like I said in one of my other podcasts, I listen to CBC as an alternative to pale skin media here in Turtle Island, quote unquote, North America. And there was a big scandal in Toronto at a Catholic, all boys, very prestigious high school where basically, from what they were describing, because technically the video is child pornography, they were describing that some of the students were basically sodomizing another student using a number of different objects. And this is at your Catholic school. Okay. So yeah, you know, the priests, the students, the faculty, you might have a lot of problems with these Catholic institutions. Okay. Catholics aren't necessarily the highest on my list. I'm sorry. I just have to say. So yeah, this report is a flim flam. Like I say, I think that a lot of these parents were freaking out with the fallout and the attention, and the school had to circle the wagons. And in the past, if any of these sexual misconduct situations specifically involve the school, this is just more of a cover story that they had to give. And if by chance, if any of these parents or anyone in the community hears this podcast, my advice to you, you need to reconsider basically just where you stand with this community, how you look at your faith, particularly with this organization, with the institution of the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Empire that never really went anywhere because it still exists. The Pope is basically the emperor. And I would not send my children to this school with this faculty, with the issues, with the leadership, with the poor discipline and professionalism. There's no way. Lack of judgment, poor judgment. You know, there's no way I would send my children to this school. Wouldn't trust it.